So there is a problem in that we have a better understanding of human rights and the importance of respecting human rights in the supply chain abroad than we have in respect to a pressure on businesses to respect trade union rights and the rights of their workers to be in a union and to collectively bargain. And we also have some problematic rulings in relation to competition law in particular. Of course, it doesn't stop there, and another example of lack of respect is in relation to our good friends who are our police force. The police force are part of Eurocop. It's an organisation that represents police, and so if I'm at a meeting in Brussels, I can associate with the Irish police force in Brussels because they're part of Eurocop, but I can't have the same meeting here in Ireland because they're not allowed the same freedom of association. So we have in Ireland, I would actually argue, some of the most restrictive laws in relation to trade unions, and that has a depressing effect on human rights generally. The other area in which I constantly get phone calls, and if you're looking towards pro bono work, is for pregnant workers. It's a constant source of amazement to me how we still haven't managed to encourage employers to see pregnant workers as something positive and good for the society and something good for the world. And I regularly get phone calls from women who are not in trade unions and who are pregnant and who are facing the most obvious, flat-out discrimination against them. But because they aren't in a trade union, it's very difficult for me to send them to any other organisation, particularly because the National Employment Rights Authority doesn't represent women who are pregnant. I don't know why that's the case. I can't imagine any justification for that. But so if people were looking to get, if people were saying, well, I'm here, I'm available, certainly in respect to pregnant workers, there is a demand for help and a need for help, and yet I don't have anybody to whom I can send those workers. I think that the fourth point I wanted to make is that there is a real need for whistleblowing protection here in Ireland. Many workers become aware of human rights abuses or other wrongdoing within companies, and yet there is still, despite everything that's happened in the past, we still can't get out of the tracks in relation to protection for workers who blow the whistle, even if they blow the whistle to regulators. So we still can't get any traction on that either. Then just, I think finally, I think that there are still a lot of discussions that need to be held, even within the employment rights arena, about the balance between a human rights take on a question and an employment rights take on a question. And I think a good example of that is probably on religion. If you take a human rights perspective, everybody has an entitlement under human rights law to practice their religion. So so that you have a clear and specific human rights entitlement to that. If you take then an equality law, it's a bit more, well, we don't really want symbols and things in the workplace, So I think there's still a lot of discussion that needs to be held, and in particular in relation to religious dress in Ireland. I don't know that we've all managed to have that discussion and to get clear on religious dress. Certainly if I was to get a phone call about what's the trade union take, I'd have to go to my colleagues in the TUC or some other European countries. But I think there is still some discussions that we could usefully get the legal community's perspective on. And so I would invite the Law Society and certainly PILA to have that discussion and to have those thoughts, and then to help the trade unions out with your advice on that. Like my colleague, I'm happy to take questions. I hope I've managed to communicate to you our big concerns at the moment and some of the opportunities, and to thank you again. Thanks.